He's like a son almost. You work with these guys for...
There are exactly 3 feet of racetrack at Indianapolis Motor Speedway where drivers are asked to never spin their tires. On Saturday, Carson Kvapil, moments after the first victory of his NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series career, put a black stripe of rubber directly across all 3 of them. He says he never heard the warning. The evidence suggests he might be telling the truth. To understand how a single burnout became one of the biggest talking points of the entire race weekend, you first need to understand who Carson Kvapil is and just how long this victory took to arrive. Carson Kvapil is 23 years old, and he comes from Mooresville, North Carolina, a town so deeply connected to stock car racing that it is often called Race City, USA. Racing runs in his blood. His father is Travis Kvapil, a former NASCAR driver who won the 2003 Truck Series Championship and spent years competing at the sport's highest levels. Carson grew up around garages, haulers, and racetracks, and when he entered the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, expectations followed him everywhere he went. But expectations do not win races. Results do. And for almost 3 full seasons, the results refused to come. Carson Kvapil made 63 starts in the series without a single victory. Even more painful than the 0 in the win column were the 5 races where he came agonizingly close. 5 runner-up finishes, 5 afternoons where he crossed the finish line staring at another driver's rear bumper, 5 celebrations that belonged to somebody else. In a sport where careers are built and destroyed on winning, 5 second-place finishes are not just statistics. They are scar tissue. And this season made everything harder. Carson Kvapil entered 2026 without a full-time ride. Instead of settling into one car with one team, he has been forced to piece his season together across 3 different cars with 3 different teams. He has driven the number 1 and the number 9 Chevrolets for Junior Motorsports, and he has also driven the number 91 car fielded by Mario Gosselin for DGM Racing. Every weekend has been a job interview. Every race has been an audition. The team itself described this season as a second chance, an opportunity to prove he still belonged. There was one enormous advantage in his corner, though. Sitting on top of the pit box for the number 1 team was crew chief Rodney Childers, one of the most accomplished crew chiefs of the modern era. During his years working with Kevin Harvick in the NASCAR Cup Series, Rodney Childers engineered 2 victories at the Brickyard. If there was one man in the garage who knew exactly what it took to win at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it was the man calling the shots for Carson Kvapil. That brings us to Saturday and a Pennzoil 250 presented by Take 5 Oil Change at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the biggest stages in all of motorsports. The race itself delivered surprises from the very beginning. Sheldon Creed started from the pole and controlled the early laps, but as his handling faded, an unexpected name surged forward. Jeremy Clements, a longtime underdog in the series, passed both Sam Mayer and Sheldon Creed, then pulled away to win Stage 1 by more than 2 seconds in a completely caution-free opening segment. It was one of the biggest stage upsets of the season. Stage 2 brought its own drama. Jeremy Clements lost 7 positions after an 18-second pit stop, handing control to Ross Chastain in the number 9 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet. A spin by Garrett Smithley brought out the first natural caution of the race with 7 laps left in the stage, and that is when Roger Carruth rolled the dice. While the leaders pitted, Roger Carruth stayed out on old tires, held off the field on the restart, and stole the Stage 2 victory. It was a bold gamble for stage points from a driver fighting desperately for a playoff spot. Then came the final stage, and the moment Carson Kvapil had been chasing for 3 years. Ross Chastain led the way early, but with 22 laps remaining. Carson Kvapil dove underneath his teammate at the exit of Turn 2 and took the lead of the race. Behind them, Chase Elliott moved into 4th, and suddenly Junior Motorsports occupied the top 4 positions on the track at the same time. But the race was far from over. Justin Allgaier, the reigning series champion and a 6-time winner this season, passed Ross Chastain with just under 10 laps to go and began hunting down the leader. Lap after lap, the gap shrank. When the white flag waved, Justin Allgaier trailed by a razor-thin .283 seconds. One more mistake, one bad run through traffic, and the story would have ended the way it had ended 5 times before, with Carson Kvapil finishing second. Not this time. Carson Kvapil held his line, hit his marks, and crossed the yard of bricks with a 0.643 second advantage. After 64 career starts, he was finally a winner in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the achievement went far beyond one driver. With Justin Allgaier second, Ross Chastain third, and Chase Elliott fourth, Junior Motorsports scored the first 4-driver sweep of an event in series history. A 1, 2, 3, 4 finish. It was the organization's 14th victory of the season, with 6 different drivers, tying the record the team set 1 year earlier. The team also placed at least one driver in the top 10 for the 79th consecutive race, tying a record set by RFK Racing between 2008 and 2010. The emotion poured out immediately. Team co-owner Dale Earnhardt Jr., one of the most famous names in the history of American motorsports, stood before the cameras and struggled to hold himself together. Fighting back tears, he said, "He's like a son almost." He spoke about how hard the organization had worked with all of its drivers, and about how close Carson Kvapil had come so many times, and about how badly a young driver needs a victory to keep his career alive. Carson Kvapil, meanwhile, did something unusual after taking the checkered flag. He drove his victory lap backwards, slowly taking in the enormous grandstands of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He later explained that he sat there thinking about all the hard work he had put in alongside his father Travis, and about the faith that Dale Earnhardt Jr., Lou Miller, and Kelly Miller had placed in him by giving him this second chance. Climbing from the car, he told reporters, "It means the world to me." He admitted he had already shed tears and was simply trying to hold it together. It was, by every measure, a perfect day. And then, in a matter of seconds, it became complicated. Riding the wave of pure adrenaline. Carson Kvapil pulled his Chevrolet onto the front stretch and lit up the rear tires in a smoky celebration burnout. The problem was the location, as spinning tires laid a long black streak of rubber directly across the yard of bricks. For anyone unfamiliar with Indianapolis Motor Speedway, here is why that matters so much. When the track opened in 1909, the entire racing surface was paved with more than 3 million bricks, which is how the facility earned its legendary nickname, the Brickyard. Over the decades, asphalt covered nearly all of it. Today, only one narrow strip of those original bricks remains exposed, and it has served as the start and finish line since 1961. That strip is treated less like pavement and more like a shrine. Winning drivers and teams kneel down and kiss it. Champions pose on it for photographs that define their careers. Ironically, Carson Kvapil himself kissed those very bricks during his celebration. Track officials work constantly to preserve them, and burnouts on the bricks make that preservation mission dramatically harder. Here is where the story takes its strangest turn. NASCAR did attempt to intervene. During the cool-down lap, officials radioed a reminder to the number 1 team about keeping the burnout away from the bricks. But the message never reached the one person who needed to hear it. Carson Kvapil had already unplugged his radio during the celebration. In the loudest, most emotional moment of his career, he was completely disconnected from the outside world. And there is a wrinkle in this story that makes it even more interesting. Bob Pockras of FOX Sports, one of the most respected reporters in NASCAR, went back and reviewed the radio transmissions from the race. His conclusion raised a serious question about the timeline. He stated that after looking through the transmissions, he did not believe the warning was ever relayed to Carson Kvapil before the driver took off his earbuds. In other words, this may not simply be a case of a driver missing a message. The message itself may have arrived too late to ever be heard. That detail shifts at least part of the conversation away from the rookie and toward the timing of the communication itself. Carson Kvapil did not learn what he had done until well after the celebration ended. In the post-race press conference, he described the moment of realization, saying, "Probably wasn't good." He confirmed he had been unplugged from his radio and had no idea whether officials said anything at all. Then he offered his own honest assessment, made a little bit of a mistake there, probably no excuses, no deflection, just a young driver admitting that in the biggest moment of his life. The rulebook was the last thing on his mind. While Carson Kvapil answered questions, the consequences of the burnout were unfolding in full public view. Just over 1 hour after the celebrations wrapped up, employees of Indianapolis Motor Speedway walked out onto the front stretch, got down on their hands and knees, and began scrubbing the black rubber off the historic brakes by hand. Local reporter Angela Morian of Wish TV captured the cleanup on video and described it as an all-hands-on-deck effort to clean the legendary strip. The footage spread across social media within minutes, and the reaction was instant and divided. That is when Dale Earnhardt Jr. stepped in, rather than staying silent or letting the moment fester online. The Junior Motorsports co-owner posted a public apology on social media within hours. He explained that the driver was unplugged from his radio when NASCAR sent the reminder, acknowledged there was a lot happening in that moment, and wrote that the team certainly regret any inconvenience. From a reputation management standpoint, the response was close to flawless. It was fast. It was direct. There was no defensiveness and no attempt to downplay what happened. Most importantly, Dale Earnhardt Jr. took ownership on behalf of the entire organization instead of throwing his young driver under the bus. In an era where race teams and sports organizations routinely get destroyed online for slow, evasive, or lawyer-crafted statements after a controversy, Junior Motorsports handled the situation about as cleanly as it could be handled. That matters because Dale Earnhardt Jr. has built his ownership group's entire identity around professionalism and respect for NASCAR's traditions. A public apology puts a small dent in that image, but a fast and honest one allows it to heal quickly. Now, here is the context that reframes this entire controversy. Carson Kvapil is not the first driver to do this. He is not even close to the first. In 2015, NASCAR superstar Kyle Busch performed a burnout across the bricks after winning the Saturday race at Indianapolis, which was then known as the Xfinity Series race. Track officials reached out to express their displeasure, and then track president Doug Bowles delivered the line that still defines this debate: "There's 3 feet of racetrack there that we ask don't do it on." Kyle Busch clearly got the message, because when he won the Brickyard 400 the very next day, he deliberately kept his celebration far away from the start and finish line. Go back further to 2012 and you find Jimmy Johnson, a 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion and one of the greatest drivers who has ever lived, parking his car on the bricks and performing a burnout while nosed up against the wall after winning the Brickyard 400. And in 2018, the driver who did it was Justin Allgaier, Carson Kvapil's own Junior Motorsports teammate. The same man who chased him to the finish line on Saturday. After Justin Allgaier's burnout following this very same race, Doug Bowles publicly noted that it took too much effort to remove the burnout rubber from the historic bricks. So the pattern is unmistakable. This is not some reckless rookie invention that came out of nowhere. This is an emotional impulse that has tempted champions, legends, and veterans alike. Indianapolis Motor Speedway asks drivers to avoid roughly 3 feet of racetrack, and in the single most overwhelming moment of a racing career, that 3-foot detail has a way of evaporating from a driver's mind. So what happens next? There are 3 storylines worth watching closely. First, radio protocol. This incident exposed a genuine failure point in NASCAR's communication system. Drivers routinely unplug from their radios at exactly the moment officials need to reach them. Expect NASCAR to reinforce celebration guidelines more aggressively in driver meetings going forward, possibly with tighter radio procedures during victory celebrations, so that a reminder actually arrives before the earbuds come out. Second, Carson Kvapil's trajectory. Strip away the controversy, and this victory transformed his season. The win locked him into the chase, the series playoff, with 2 regular season races remaining. He leaped from 5th to 2nd place in the series standings, trailing only Justin Allgaier, who holds a commanding 265-point advantage. The final 2 regular season races take place at Iowa Speedway on August 8 and then at Daytona. before the chase begins at Darlington Raceway. And just behind the drivers who are locked in, the playoff bubble battle is razor thin. Taylor Gray holds the final spot above the cut line by just 7 points over William Sawalich, with Raja Caruth 20 points below the line, so the pressure at Iowa Speedway and Daytona will be enormous. Third, the narrative. In the best case for Carson Kvapil, this entire episode blows over within a week. His Indianapolis triumph is remembered as the breakthrough moment of his career, and the burnout becomes a harmless footnote alongside the names of Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson. In the worst case, NASCAR decides to make an example of him with a fine or a stronger public statement, turning a celebration mishap into a storyline that follows him into the playoffs, where every future victory gets measured against one question: will he do it again? As for the fans, the split is already visible and it is unlikely to close. Traditionalists and Indianapolis Motor Speedway purists view the bricks as untouchable, and for them, no amount of emotion excuses rubber on that pavement. But a large portion of the racing world sees this completely differently. They see a driver who battled through 64 races and 5 heartbreaking runner-up finishes, who stitched together a season across 3 different teams on nothing but faith, and who became so overwhelmed by finally winning that the rulebook disappeared. To those fans, that is not reckless. That is relatable. That is human. Whichever side you land on, one fact stands above the controversy. The victory itself was earned the hard way over 3 seasons of near misses, and no amount of scrubbing will ever remove it from the record books. So now the question goes to you. Are you Team Carson Kvapil, or are you Team Protect the Bricks at all costs? Should NASCAR introduce real penalties for burnouts on the yard of bricks, or is a hand scrub and an honest apology more than enough? Drop your take in the comments and make sure you are subscribed, because with a 7-point gap on the playoff bubble and 2 races left before the chase, the drama in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series is only getting started.